Dr. Hansol Park stared at her computer screen, her eyes wide with disbelief. The numbers didn't make sense, but they were real. She had checked them 20 times already. This can't be right, she whispered to herself in the quiet laboratory. The clock on the wall showed 3:30 a.m., and she was the only one still working at the Global Space Research Institute in Seoul. She took off her glasses and rubbed her tired eyes. The data from black hole BH742 was unlike anything she had seen before. Most black holes gave off regular patterns of radiation, but this one was different. The quantum signatures coming from it showed signs of stability, something that should be impossible for a black hole. Hansol reached for her phone and called the one person who would understand the importance of this discovery. After 3 rings, a sleepy voice answered. "Jae-ho, it's Hansol. I need you to come to the lab right now." "Do you know what time it is?" Dr. Jae-ho Kim asked, his voice heavy with sleep. "Trust me, you want to see this. I think we just found something impossible." 30 minutes later, Jae-ho stood behind Hansol's chair, looking at the same data. His tie was crooked, and his lab coat was wrinkled, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "Show me the readings again," he said, leaning closer to the screen. Hansol pulled up the graphs. "See these patterns? They repeat every 67 seconds. Black holes shouldn't do that. They should be chaotic. But this one," she pointed to a steady line on the graph, "this one is acting like it has some kind of structure inside it." Jae-ho pulled up a chair and started typing on the second computer. "Let me compare this with our database of known black holes." His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. "Nothing even comes close to these readings." "That's not all," Hansol said, switching to another screen. "Look at the quantum signature. It's like something is holding the singularity stable. Based on everything we know about physics, this shouldn't be possible." They worked through the early morning hours, checking and double-checking their findings. As the sun rose over Seoul, casting long shadows through the laboratory windows, they had confirmed their initial discovery. Black hole BH742 was breaking all the rules they knew about how black holes should behave. "We need to tell the director," Jae-ho said, printing out their preliminary report. "This could change everything we know about quantum gravity." Hansol nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead. If they were right, this black hole wasn't just unusual. It might be the key to understanding how gravity worked at the quantum level, something scientists have been trying to figure out for over 100 years. The director arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, as she did every morning. Hansol and Jae-ho were waiting in her office, their report ready. Director Ta Won-yu was known for her skepticism, but even she couldn't hide her surprise as she read through their findings. "You're certain about these readings?" she asked, looking up from the papers. "We spent all night confirming them," Hansol replied. "The equipment is working perfectly, and we've ruled out any interference. This black hole is different from any we've ever studied." Director Yu tapped her fingers on the desk, thinking. After a long moment, she reached for her phone. "I'm calling an emergency meeting with the International Space Coalition. If you're right about this, we need to investigate further." She looked at both scientists with serious eyes. This could be the biggest discovery in the history of physics. As Hansol and Jae-ho left the director's office, they knew their lives were about to change. They had just taken the first step into unknown territory, and there was no going back. Whatever was happening inside BH742, it would push the boundaries of human knowledge and understanding. The discovery was just the beginning. Neither of them knew it yet, but they had started a chain of events that would lead humanity to question everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place in it. 3 months after the discovery of BH742's unusual behavior, Commander Yoon-Vi Lee stood in front of the massive viewing window at the International Space Coalition headquarters. The spacecraft that would carry his team into history gleamed under the bright lights of the assembly bay. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" a voice said behind him. Commander Lee turned to see Dr. Hansol Park walking toward him, carrying a tablet with the mission details. "The Hawking Initiative," he said, nodding. "Most advanced spacecraft ever built." The ship's dark hull was designed to withstand forces that would tear apart any other vessel. Its quantum shields, created by engineer Do-hyun Choi, were humanity's best defense against the extreme gravitational forces they would face. Hansol handed him the tablet. "The final crew list is ready for your approval." Commander Lee read through the names. Besides himself and Dr. Park, there was pilot Soo-jae Kang, known for her perfect record in extreme condition flights, and Do-hyun Choi, the quiet genius who had designed most of the ship's protective systems. Dr. Jae-ho Kim would join them as the secondary science officer. 5 people, Lee said, looking at the list. 5 people to solve the biggest mystery in physics. The next week passed in a blur of final preparations. Soo-jae spent hours in the flight simulator, practicing maneuvers near the simulated black hole. Do-hyun checked and rechecked every system on the ship, making small adjustments to the quantum shields. Hansol and Jae-ho worked on calibrating their instruments to capture every possible bit of data from BH-742. The night before launch, Commander Lee found Hansol in the ship's observation dome, staring at the stars. "Nervous?" he asked, floating in the zero gravity beside her. "No," she said, then smiled. "Yes, we're about to see something no one has ever seen before. If we're right about BG-742, it could change everything we know about the universe. And if we're wrong, then we'll still learn something new. That's what science is about." Launch day arrived clear and cold. The Hawking Initiative sat on its launch pad, vapor clouds swirling around its base. Inside the ship, the crew ran through their final checks. "Engine systems ready," Soo-jae reported from the pilot's seat. "Quantum shields at full power," Do-hyun added, his fingers dancing across his control panel. "Science stations operational," Jae-ho confirmed. Commander Lee looked at each member of his crew, then pressed the comm button. "Control, this is Hawking Initiative. We are ready for launch." The countdown began. Hansol closed her eyes, feeling the vibration of the engines through her seat. This was the moment everything had been leading to since that late night in her lab. "Launch in 10, 9, 8. Do-hyun watched his shield readings carefully. 7, 6, 5. Soo-jae's hands rested lightly on the controls. 4, 3, 2. Jae-ho said a silent prayer. 1. Ignition. The Hawking Initiative rose from Earth on a column of blue flame. The crew felt the crushing force of acceleration as they pushed through the atmosphere. Minutes later, they were in space, the curve of Earth falling away below them. "First stage separation complete," Soo-jae reported. "Course set for BH-742. All systems normal," Do-hyun added. "Shields holding steady." Commander Lee unbuckled his harness and floated up from his seat. "Good work, everyone. Now the real mission begins. In 6 weeks, we'll be the first humans to study a black hole up close." Hansol looked out at the stars through the ship's window. Somewhere out there, BH-742 was waiting for them, holding secrets that could revolutionize human understanding of the universe. Whatever they found out there would be no going back. The mission to uncover the truth about this impossible black hole had officially begun. 5 weeks into their journey, pilot Soo-jae Kang noticed something strange on her instruments. The Hawking Initiative was now close enough to see BH-742 with their main telescopes, but the readings didn't match their expectations. "Dr. Park," Soo-jae called out, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Could you look at this?" Hansol floated over to Soo-jae's station. The gravity sensors were showing unusual patterns that seemed to pulse with a steady rhythm. This wasn't the chaotic behavior they expected from a black hole. "Jae-ho," Hansol called to her colleague, "are you seeing this on the science stations?" Dr. Jae-ho Kim was already reviewing the data at his console. "Yes. The gravitational waves are forming a pattern I've never seen before. It's almost like... Like what? Commander Lee asked, joining them at the front of the bridge. Like it's been engineered, Jai-Ho finished. Natural black holes don't create patterns this regular. Do-hyun spoke up from his engineering station. The quantum shields are picking up something else. There's a stable structure forming inside the event horizon. Hansol rushed to her own station and began running calculations. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The data shows an Einstein-Rosen bridge, a stable wormhole inside the black hole." The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this information. They all knew that wormholes were theoretical structures that should collapse instantly if they ever formed. But the readings clearly showed something holding this one open. "Show me the visual," Commander Lee ordered. Suji switched the main screen to telescope view. V742 appeared as a perfect black circle against the stars, with strange blue patterns of light swirling around its edge. As they watched, the patterns began to shift and align. "The bridge is maintaining its stability," Do-hyun reported, checking his instruments. "Something or someone has modified this black hole at the quantum level. The engineering involved." He shook his head in amazement. Hansol's mind was racing. "We need to launch the probe now. If we wait, we might miss our chance to study this." Commander Lee considered the situation. They had planned to spend another week running preliminary scans before sending in their probe, but this discovery changed everything. "Do-hyun, are the quantum shields on the probe ready?" "Yes, sir. All systems are green." "Suji, can you get us into optimal launching position?" "Already calculating the trajectory, sir." The Hawking Initiative slowly adjusted its position, keeping a safe distance from the black hole while moving to the perfect angle for launching the probe. Through the windows, they could see the strange blue patterns growing stronger. "Probe ready for launch," Do-hyun announced. "Launch sequence starting." Suji confirmed. The probe, a sleek cylinder covered in sensors and protected by the same quantum shields as the main ship, detached from the Hawking Initiative. It moved slowly at first, then picked up speed as it headed toward the black hole. "Probe approaching the event horizon," Jai-Ho reported, watching the data stream in. All systems functioning normally. Suddenly, the blue patterns around the black hole pulsed brightly. The probe's signals became erratic. "We're losing telemetry," Do-hyun shouted. "The quantum shield is failing." They watched helplessly as the probe spun out of control, its sensors overloaded by whatever force was emanating from the black hole. In seconds, it had vanished beyond the event horizon. "All signals lost," Jai-Ho reported quietly. Hansol stared at the screen where the probe had disappeared. Their best technology, designed specifically for this mission, had failed in seconds. But the data they'd received in those final moments, it was revolutionary. "Look at this," she said, pulling up the probe's last transmission. "Just before we lost contact, it recorded quantum signatures that match perfectly with theoretical models of artificial spacetime manipulation." "Are you saying?" Commander Lee started. "Yes," Hansol replied. "Someone built this. Someone turned this black hole into something else entirely. And now we have to decide what to do about it." The crew looked out at BH742, its mysterious blue patterns continuing their hypnotic dance. They had come seeking answers about the nature of black holes. Instead, they had found evidence that humanity wasn't alone in its quest to understand the universe. Commander Yoon-Gai Lee called an emergency meeting in the Hawking Initiative's conference room. The loss of their probe weighed heavily on everyone's minds as they gathered around the table, secured in their seats by magnetic belts. "We need to discuss our next steps," Commander Lee began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Dr. Park, please share your analysis of the probe's final data." Hansol displayed the readings on the main screen. The probe recorded something extraordinary in its last moments. The quantum signatures suggest that the black hole's structure has been artificially modified. The wormhole we detected appears to be maintained by some kind of advanced technology. How is that possible? Suji asked, leaning forward to study the data. Do-hyun, who had been quiet since the probe's loss, spoke up. The quantum shields on the probe were working perfectly until they encountered an unknown force. Whatever is maintaining that wormhole operates on principles we don't yet understand. Jai-ho pulled up his own calculations. Based on the data, we have a narrow window of opportunity. The stable region of the wormhole appears to cycle every 6 hours. The next optimal window opens in 3 hours. Commander Lee looked at each member of his crew. What are our options? We could send another probe, Suji suggested, maybe with modified shields. Do-hyun shook his head. We don't have time to make the necessary adjustments. Whatever we're going to do, it has to happen during the next window. Han-Sol stood up, her decision already made. I want to go in myself. The room fell silent. We have one research pod left. With the enhanced quantum shielding, it might survive long enough for me to gather the data we need. Absolutely not, Commander Lee responded firmly. It's too dangerous. We've already lost one probe. Commander, Han-Sol said, her voice calm but determined. I've spent my entire career studying black holes. I understand the risks, but this is a chance to answer questions humanity has been asking for centuries. The pod's shields are stronger than the probe's, and with a human pilot, we can adapt to changing conditions. Jai-ho supported her argument. The readings suggest that something is stabilizing the gravitational forces inside. It's possible that a manned mission could succeed where an automated probe failed. Do-hyun pulled up the pod's specifications. The quantum shields on the pod are designed to withstand forces 50% stronger than what the probe encountered. And I can reinforce them further in the next 3 hours. Commander Lee paced the conference room, considering their options. The mission directives were clear about protecting human life, but they were also clear about pursuing significant scientific discoveries. This qualified as both. If we do this, he said finally, we need a concrete plan. Dr. Park, what exactly would you hope to achieve? Han-Sol activated a holographic display of BH-742. The pod can gather data about the quantum structure of the wormhole. If we understand how it's been stabilized, it could revolutionize our understanding of physics. More importantly, it would provide evidence that advanced engineering at this scale is possible. Suji studied the proposed trajectory. I can plot a course that maximizes your chances of return. If anything goes wrong, you'll have a clear path back to us. The commander made his decision. We have 2 hours to prepare. Do-hyun, strengthen those shields. Suji, calculate the exact approach vector. Ji-ho, work with Dr. Park to determine what data is absolutely essential to collect. He turned to Han-Sol. Are you certain about this? She nodded, her expression resolute. Some questions are worth risking everything to answer. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Commander Lee watched them work with a mixture of pride and concern. In 2 hours, they would either make history or lose one of Earth's brightest minds to the mysteries of BH-742. The decision was made, but its consequences would reach far beyond their mission and potentially change humanity's understanding of the universe forever. The research pod detached from the Hawking Initiative with a gentle push. Inside, Dr. Han-Sol Park watched as the main ship grew smaller behind her. The pod's interior was cramped but efficient, filled with sensors and monitoring equipment. Do-hyun's enhanced quantum shields created a soft blue glow around the vessel. Communications check. Commander Lee's voice came through her headset. Reading you clearly, Han-Sol responded, her eyes on the instrument panel. All systems are functioning normally. Suji's voice followed. You're on the correct approach vector. Time to optimal entry point. 12 minutes. Han-Sol looked ahead at BH-742. The black hole hung against the stars like a perfect circle of darkness, surrounded by swirling blue patterns of light. As she watched, the patterns began to pulse in their 6-hour rhythm. Beginning primary approach, she announced, engaging the pod's engines. The small vessel moved steadily toward the event horizon, following Suji's carefully plotted course. Jai-Ho monitored the readings from the main ship. Gravitational effects are increasing. Time dilation will begin soon. Hansol noticed it first as a slight stretching sensation. Her movements felt slower, though her mind remained clear. The clock on her instrument panel began to run at a different speed from her personal timepiece. Time dilation confirmed, she reported. My clock is running at 80% of ship time. The blue patterns around the black hole grew brighter as she approached. The pod's sensors recorded everything, sending data back to the Hawking Initiative in continuous streams. Quantum shield strength at 95%, Do-hyun reported. You're doing well. But something was changing. The closer Hansol got to the event horizon, the more the universe seemed to distort around her. Stars appeared to move and stretch, forming impossible patterns across her view screen. Visual distortions increasing. She noted, her voice remaining professional despite the strange sights. The space ahead appears to be folding. Commander Lee's voice came through with growing static. What? Your readings, Dr. Park. Communications breaking down, she reported. The time dilation is affecting our signals. The pod continued its approach. Hansol could now see the structure they had detected earlier, a pattern in the fabric of space itself, visible only this close to the black hole. It reminded her of ripples in a pond, but these ripples were in reality itself. There's definitely something artificial here, she said into her headset, unsure if her words were reaching the ship. The patterns are too regular, too precise to be natural. Her instruments showed she was now experiencing time at less than half the rate of the main ship. Words from the Hawking Initiative came through broken and stretched, barely comprehensible. Then she saw it. At the edge of the event horizon, where science said nothing should be visible, she spotted a geometric pattern. Perfect lines and curves formed a structure that shouldn't exist in nature. I can see it, she transmitted. There's a constructed framework holding the wormhole open. Someone built this. Someone made this possible. The pod sensors were recording unprecedented data about the quantum structure of space-time. Every second brought new discoveries that would revolutionize physics, if she could get the information back to the ship. Hansol checked her instruments one last time. She was approaching the point of no return. If she went any further, the gravitational pull would be too strong for the pod to escape. But the answers she sought lay just beyond that threshold. With steady hands, she guided the pod forward. The universe stretched and twisted around her as she approached the border between known physics and the impossible. Whatever waited on the other side of that boundary, she was about to become the first human to see it. As Hansol's pod crossed the event horizon of BH-742, something unexpected happened. Instead of the crushing forces she had expected, she found herself in what appeared to be a carefully constructed space. The pod's instruments were still working, defying everything known about black hole physics. The interior of BH-742 was unlike anything human science had imagined. Streams of light flowed in geometric patterns around her pod, forming what looked like a vast network of energy pathways. The quantum shields glowed brightly but held steady, protecting her from the intense forces that should have torn the pod apart. This is Dr. Park, she transmitted, knowing her messages might never reach the Hawking Initiative. I'm inside the black hole, and it's been engineered. The entire structure has been modified at the quantum level. Her sensors detected complex patterns in the fabric of space-time itself. These weren't random fluctuations, they were precisely arranged, like the circuits on a computer chip. Whoever had built this had found a way to control gravity itself. Hansol guided the pod deeper into the structure. The walls of the constructed space pulsed with energy, maintaining a stable bubble of normal space-time within the black hole. Her instruments recorded everything, gathering data that would revolutionize human understanding of physics. The singularity has been contained, she reported into her communication system. There's a network of quantum-level machines here, holding it in a stable state. They're using the black hole's own energy to power the system. As she moved through the engineered space, Hansol noticed patterns in the energy flows. They weren't random. They'd formed a kind of language, a way of encoding information in the structure of space-time itself. Her computer began to detect mathematical sequences hidden in the patterns. This isn't just a modified black hole, she realized. It's a laboratory. Someone built this place to study the fundamental forces of the universe. She checked her instruments again. The quantum signatures suggest this structure is thousands of years old, maybe older. The pod's sensors detected a central chamber ahead, where the energy patterns converge. As Hansol approached, she saw something that made her catch her breath. In the heart of the black hole, suspended in the carefully maintained space, was a perfect sphere of pure energy. "I found what looks like a control center," she transmitted. "The engineering is beyond anything we've imagined. They found a way to turn a destructive force like a black hole into a tool for scientific research." Her instruments began recording massive amounts of data from the sphere. The mathematical patterns it contained seemed to describe the fundamental laws of physics in a way that unified all known forces. It was exactly what scientists on Earth had been searching for, a theory of everything, encoded in the heart of a black hole. "This is what they were studying," Hansol said with growing excitement. "They found a way to observe the deepest levels of reality, the place where all physical laws become one. And they left it here for others to find." The pod's computer worked to decode the patterns, storing as much information as it could. Hansol knew that if she could get this data back to Earth, it would change everything. This wasn't just proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe. It was proof that the greatest mysteries of physics could be solved. As she studied the control center, Hansol noticed something else. The energy patterns weren't just maintaining the structure. They were also showing her how it worked. The builders had left instructions, encoded in a universal language of mathematics and physics. They wanted this to be found, she realized. This isn't just a laboratory, it's a gift, a way to help other civilizations understand the universe. She began the careful process of documenting everything she saw. Whatever happened next, this discovery would change the course of human history forever. After studying the control center inside BH-742, Dr. Hansol Park faced her greatest challenge, finding a way back to the Hawking Initiative. The pod's instruments showed that the stable region would begin to shift soon, and she needed to time her exit perfectly. The mathematical patterns she had discovered weren't just scientific data. They included information about how to navigate the modified black hole safely. The ancient builders had left a map, hidden in the quantum signatures that filled the engineered space. Beginning exit sequence, she transmitted, though she wasn't sure if anyone could hear her. "The structure appears to have predetermined paths for safe passage. I'm following the navigational patterns now." Hansol guided her pod along one of the energy pathways. The quantum shields hummed steadily, their glow matching the patterns of light that marked the safe route. She had learned that the shields weren't just protecting the pod, they were also helping it interact with the engineered structure of the black hole. As she moved toward the event horizon, the pod's computer continued to record everything. The data she had gathered would take scientists years to fully understand. It contained not only the unified theory of physics that scientists had sought for centuries, but also proof that humanity wasn't alone in its quest to understand the universe. The journey out was more challenging than the journey in. The pod had to fight against the black hole's immense gravitational pull, even along the engineered pathway. Hansol watched her power readings carefully, knowing that one mistake could trap her forever. "Power at 60%, she noted in her log. "The quantum shields are holding, but the strain is significant." The builders designed these paths to work with their own technology. "We're pushing the limits of what our systems can handle." Then something unexpected happened. As the pod approached the exit point, the energy patterns around it began to shift. The ancient machinery was responding to her presence, adjusting the stable region to help her escape. The system is adaptive, she realized. It's not just a static structure. It's actively helping to preserve anything that enters its space. The builders wanted to ensure that the knowledge they left behind could actually leave the black hole. The pod's sensors detected the event horizon ahead. Beyond it, somewhere in the distorted space, the Hawking Initiative waited. But time dilation meant that what had been hours for her might have been days or even weeks for her crew. Approaching exit point, she transmitted. The quantum signatures suggest this is the optimal moment to break free of the black hole's gravity. Han Sol took a deep breath and engaged the pod's full power. The small vessel surged forward along the engineered pathway, its shield straining against the intense forces. Space twisted around her as she approached the boundary between the modified interior and normal space. The emergence was more gentle than she expected. One moment she was surrounded by the geometric patterns of engineered spacetime, and the next she was back in normal space. The black circle of BH-742 was behind her now, its blue patterns still pulsing with their regular rhythm. "This is Dr. Park," she transmitted, hoping her signal would reach the ship. "I've cleared the event horizon. The mission was successful. We have the data." Through her viewport, she saw a bright light approaching. As it grew closer, she recognized the familiar shape of the Hawking Initiative. The ship had waited for her return, despite the time distortion that could have made her journey last for weeks from their perspective. The pod's computer contained proof that the greatest questions in physics could be answered. More importantly, it showed that another civilization had not only answered these questions, but had left the answers where others could find them. Humanity's understanding of the universe was about to change forever. 1 year after the Hawking Initiative's return to Earth, the scientific world had changed forever. Dr. Han Sol Park stood at the podium of the newly established Park Kim Institute, looking out at the eager faces of young scientists from around the world. Behind her, through the institute's massive window, the stars shone brightly in the night sky. "Today we begin a new chapter in human history," she said to the assembled crowd. "The data we brought back from BH-742 has given us more than just answers. It has given us new questions to explore." The discoveries from the black hole had revolutionized multiple fields of science. Du Hyun's quantum shield technology, improved by what they had learned, was now being used to explore other extreme environments. Suji's piloting techniques had become standard training for space missions. Jiho had spent months helping to decode the mathematical patterns they had found. Commander Lee, now director of the International Space Coalition's Black Hole Research Division, sat in the front row. He smiled as he remembered their journey. What had started as a scientific mission had become humanity's first contact with evidence of another civilization's achievements. "The modified black hole taught us something important," Han Sol continued. "We learned that the universe's greatest mysteries can be solved. But more than that, we learned that we're not alone in trying to solve them." The Institute's main research floor buzzed with activity. Scientists worked with new quantum computers, built using principles learned from BH-742's engineering. The computers weren't as advanced as what they had found in the black hole, but they were a step in that direction. "The builders of that structure left us more than just scientific knowledge," Han Sol said. "They left us hope. Hope that civilizations can achieve things we once thought impossible. Hope that knowledge can be preserved and shared across the vast distances of space and time." In the Institute's testing chamber, a miniature version of the quantum shield glowed with the same blue light they had seen around BH-742. Engineers were learning to control gravity on a small scale, the first step toward replicating what the ancient builders had achieved. "We don't know who they were," Han Sol acknowledged. "We don't know what they looked like or how they lived, but we know they chose to share their knowledge. They built something that would survive for thousands of years, waiting for others to find it and learn from it." The screens behind her showed images from the new observation station being built near BH-742. The International Space Coalition had made studying the modified black hole a priority. 3 more research ships were already under construction, each one incorporating lessons learned from the Hawking Initiative's mission. This institute isn't just about studying what we found, Hansol explained. It's about continuing what those ancient builders started. One day, we too will leave knowledge for others to find. We too will help guide those who come after us. As she finished speaking, the audience rose in applause. Outside the institute, the city lights twinkled like stars. Somewhere in those lights, Du Hyun was working on the next generation of quantum shields. Suji was training new pilots. Jeho was helping decode more of the mathematical patterns they had discovered. Commander Lee joined Hansol at the podium. "Ready to begin the next phase?" he asked. She nodded, looking out at the eager faces before her. These were the people who would carry their discoveries forward, who would build on what they had learned inside BH-742. The mystery of what happens if you fall into a black hole had been answered, but it had led to even greater questions. "The builders left us a gift," Hansol said quietly. "Now it's our turn to do something with it. This isn't the end of our journey. It's just the beginning."